In 1931, a quiet woman was found murdered inside her locked home. There were no fingerprints, no weapon, no motive. The only clue was a strange phone call from a man who didn't exist. The husband was convicted. Then he walked free. Was this the most brilliantly executed crime in British history? To this day, no one knows who really killed Julia Wallace. A fake name, a fake address, a perfectly timed alibi, and a murder that no one could have predicted. Or was an innocent man framed by someone even more calculating? He was 52 years old, thin and serious, with a reputation for being methodical. Some even said eccentric. The couple had no children, few friends, and no known enemies. He worked as an insurance agent for the Prudential and spent most evenings alone or playing chess. Just before his match, he was handed a message. Stay with us, because by the end of this story, you may just solve the impossible. William Herbert Wallace lived a quiet, predictable life in Liverpool. He asked conductors and pedestrians for help finding the address. But no one had ever heard of Menlove Gardens East. He said he was interested in buying insurance and asked Wallace to meet him the next evening at 25 Menlove Gardens East. His wife, Julia Wallace, was 69, reclusive, proper, and quiet. She rarely left their modest home on Wolverton Street. They lived simply, without drama, until one ordinary evening changed everything. On January 19, 1931, William attended his weekly chess club at the Liverpool Central Chess Association. A man calling himself Arm Qualtrough had phoned the club earlier that day. Her head had been brutally bludgeoned with a heavy object. There was blood pooled around her. Her skull caved in. When they arrived, the scene was chilling, but something didn't add up. Her handbag had been searched, but nothing was stolen. Nothing in the home had been disturbed, except Julia's body. The call to the chess club, the one from Arm Qualtrough, had come from a public phone box located just 400 yards from the Wallaces' home. There were no signs of forced entry. No neighbors reported seeing anything unusual. Wallace agreed. Why wouldn't he? A potential client meant a possible sale. It was business. What he didn't know was that this mysterious appointment would change the course of his life. Was Qualtrough a name he invented to create a false alibi so he could leave the house and pretend to find his wife murdered? The next night, January 20th, Wallace left home around 6:45 p.m. and took the tram toward Menlove Gardens. There was a Menlove Gardens north, south, and west, but no east. It simply didn't exist. After about 45 minutes of wandering in the cold, Wallace gave up and returned home. He walked into his dark, silent house. Julia didn't greet him. The house was too quiet. They said he planned the whole thing with brutal precision and used his own chess skills to move the pieces of an alibi into place. And then he found her. Julia was lying on the floor near the gas fireplace in the parlor. They ruled that no jury should have been able to convict based on the facts presented. He lived his final days in isolation, under a cloud of public doubt. The killer had come and gone without a trace. Perry had a criminal past, knew Wallace's schedule, and may have had access to the Wallaces' home. Some believe he made the call posing as Qualtrough and murdered Julia while Wallace was out. Wallace called the police. There were no bloody footprints, no signs of a struggle. It felt too clean, too precise, too strange. The next day, police made a disturbing discovery. The timing was suspicious. The phone call has never been traced. The murder weapon was never found, and no one has ever been charged again. Could William have made the call himself? Investigators believed so. They theorized that Wallace killed Julia, cleaned himself up, and left the house with a perfectly staged story, then wandered around looking for a fake address, asking just enough questions to be remembered by strangers. Wallace was arrested and charged with murder. At trial, The prosecution painted Wallace as cold, calculating, and clever. And if you enjoy true crime, unsolved cases, and stories that defy logic, subscribe for more. Because sometimes the scariest thing is a story with no ending. The defense pointed out that there was no motive, no murder weapon, no witnesses, and no forensic evidence tying Wallace to the scene. Still, the jury found him guilty. He was sentenced to death. But just a month later, something extraordinary happened. The Court of Criminal Appeal overturned the conviction, citing a lack of solid evidence. William Wallace was released from prison. He became one of the first people in British history to be sentenced to death, and then declared innocent by the court. But even in freedom, suspicion followed him everywhere. Wallace died in 1933, just 2 years later, from kidney disease. So if Wallace didn't kill Julia, who did? One popular theory points to Richard Perry, a former colleague of Wallace. Another theory suggests a random intruder or a burglar gone wrong. But nothing was stolen. Some believe Julia knew her killer and let them in. And others are convinced Wallace did it. That the whole thing from the phone call to the fake address was his invention, perfectly executed. Almost too perfectly. To this day, Julia Wallace's murder remains unsolved. It's been called the most mysterious murder in British legal history. A real-life locked room puzzle. So what do you think? Was William Wallace the criminal mastermind behind the perfect alibi? Or was he a victim caught in someone else's game? Leave your theory in the comments.